My name is Jeff Faust. Feel free to hit me on Twitter, send me an email about me. I'm a learner first, and I try to maintain that daily and remind myself that if I'm not learning, then I'm not growing, and if I'm not growing, then I'm at the end of the road. So I'm also the consummate computer guy. Doesn't matter where I go. Oh, you're the computer guy. And what I've learned in my career is it doesn't matter what your title is, it doesn't matter where you are. The minute you walk into a school and someone has a problem, you're the computer guy, because you can help them fix that problem. And so I've tried to maintain that reality that I'm the computer guy and a little bit of humility about that. And I'm a proud Xennial. And how many, show of hands real quickly, how many of you have heard this term Xennial before? Do you guys? Okay, so about 20% of you or so. Xennial's really an interesting idea, and I think it just came out about a month, 2 months ago, and it's the idea that people of my micro generation, there's this little 10-year group of people who were born into an analog world and then had to grow into a digital world. And so growing up, I didn't have a computer in my house until high school, and all of a sudden that became something that everybody had. And so I am a proud Xennial. That is a picture of me. The unfortunate part is that's the coolest I've ever been. I have worked my whole life to be as cool as I was in that picture, and I'm still trying. So Ryan mentioned that I'm a ardent supporter of education, and I am a Google certified trainer. I love the Google tools. I love Canvas tools. I love tools that meet their users, especially learners, right where they are. And so anything like that's going to get me going and get me excited. My first internet experience, going back to that Xennial idea, looked like this. So my first internet experience, I had the good fortune of living down the street from a friend of mine, and his dad worked at IBM. So he had the internet in his basement, in a computer in the corner. It's like, we have the internet. And at that time, what was that? This was pre-browser, right? Netscape didn't exist yet. And so everything was terminal. It looked like a terminal. And you put in, look for, and there were URLs, like there still was lookups, and that structure was there, but there was no Netscape, there was no Explorer, there was none of that nice visual thing. But I remember to this day my first experience and how that excited me. And it looked something like this. We were only 10, so we looked for pictures of animals. I'm sure later on in life that search would have changed. But I remember it, and it was a picture of a parrot, and I still see that to this day. It was a picture of a parrot in a rainforest somewhere, and we looked up a picture of a parrot, and the idea that picture came from somewhere else through the computer, and then boom, was on the screen, was absolutely mind-blowing. Before, to see a color picture of a parrot like that, I would have had to grab an encyclopedia, World Book, go to the library, check out a book on parrots, that kind of thing. So the idea that I could just ask for something and have it there, still to this day is a defining experience. Now, it wasn't great, right? It was, like the little owl picture here, kind of loaded. So we all know about progressive loading, or really, if you, early on, pictures would load line by line, right? Everybody remember that experience? It's like, oh, what is it? Oh, the owl, it just was symbolic for me, and I will say that seeing that first picture, that picture of that parrot, it was absolutely something that to this day I hang on to. So when we talk about individualized instruction, I think we have to go down the why road before we talk about what. There's no way for me to cover all the awesome stuff that you can do with Canvas for individualized instruction in 35 minutes, I promise you. I'm going to do my best to give you a spattering of some of the really awesome stuff that we're using and some of the really awesome stuff that's available, but I think we'd be remiss to not talk about why first, because I don't think we have a shared agreement on this. And there's different words out there, right? Individualized, personalized, student-centered. There's this, again, we love the education jargon and we love all these terms, and unfortunately, what tends to happen is they become nuanced. And to one person, individualized means something different than to another person, and personalized means something different to somebody. So what I want to do is share with you my sort of perspective on this, remember, computer guy, and why I think this is so important. So Piaget, anybody with an education degree knows who Piaget is. And this quote from 1968 was so brilliant I don't know that we realized how brilliant it was until probably more recently. The idea that there's more content knowledge, there's more information now than there ever has been. I mean, he saw this. This was pre-computer age, pre-internet age. And so if this is growing, and it is growing and really rapidly, well, how does that change what we should be teaching, what we should be valuing in our classrooms? So why do we individualize instruction? And I think Piaget was onto it. Right? Has anybody seen this graph before? Maybe, maybe not. That is a graph of, it's basically called the knowledge cycle. And what it is, it's showing how quickly we attain information. And in the year 1900, turn of the previous century, the information on Earth was doubling every 100 years. Right? Every 100 years, your encyclopedia set would go from 20 to 40, technically. What we do is we actually eliminated stuff from the encyclopedia. But where we are right now, that amount of information on Earth is doubling every 13 months. And the predictions are that with the Internet of Things, hyperconnectivity, everything gathering information from everyone all the time, that we'll be down to less than a day in a matter of a decade. That the amount of information on the Earth and the amount of ones and zeros stored in servers will double every day. So, why do we need to, so I'm making a bit of a quantum leap here. Moore's law, Moore's law says that semiconductors and processing will double. It's linear, it's not exponential, and it stayed true to today. And the reality is that we still don't know what the full ramifications of this are, but when processes are everywhere, they're collecting information. That information, you have to do something with it. And so I really think because of Moore's law, because of this rapid creation of content and information, we have to be aware of the fact that the needs for our students are potentially drastically different than what we needed when we were in school. So AI, I think we have to talk about it, right? And we're not talking iRobot, right? If we were to develop AI that thinks like people, that's the wrong way to think of AI, because we already have people that think like people, right? What we need AI to do is we need AI to think differently, right? And so has anybody seen this Ted Watson search app? Everybody loves TED Talks, right? Maybe not. I think most people do. If you haven't seen this, take a moment later today and just take a look. What the Watson team at IBM did is they worked with TED to take all the TED videos and they indexed them and cataloged them, every word, every content, subject matter, everything else. And now you can go ask Watson a question. Say, in this case I said, hey, what innovations have had the greatest impact on humanity? And what Watson did in a matter of 20 seconds was curated a playlist for me. Not just a playlist of whole videos, but segments. So I got a playlist on the right-hand side, you see it, and you see in the video itself, you see that little blue bar? That's how much that video Watson feels like I need to watch to get the information or the answer to the question that I'm looking for. So it goes through the video playlist, providing exactly targeted information based upon the search that it thinks I need. Now, my teacher hat goes like, right? Curation of content being done by a computer that's targeted and directly in response to the question that I'm asking. Holy mackerel, right? And we've all seen, Hey Siri, Alexa. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say that because anybody watching it at home will order toilet paper. Or OK Google. We've all seen, I'm sorry, sound guy, I know you told me not to walk over here, but I need water. We've all seen the responses to those, and they're getting better and better. They're not great, right? They're not perfect. But they're getting better, and I think that changes a lot of what we need to be thinking about. We've all heard this quote, book Too Big to Know, the smartest person in the room is the room. I think that, again, as a teacher, You have to embrace this reality. You have to embrace the idea that your room, the collective information, the collective abilities in the room is the most valuable and smartest asset of that room, not any one person. And Caroline Tomlinson, hands up if you know who this is. So I have to plug her for two reasons. One, we all heard the term differentiation. Two, she's from UVA, so we love her. But Caroline Tomlinson, again, another one ahead of her time. I think that we first heard differentiation 20 years ago, right? And 20 years ago, how many people say they worked in a school that had successfully differentiated instruction? And how many people today? Right, okay, good. That's the answer I would expect. The idea is there, but I think until very recently, it's been really, really next to impossible to do it well. And I think there's a difference at levels, too. I think elementary teachers actually differentiate a lot better than secondary teachers. Right? I think they have to. And so when you say differentiation to a third grade teacher, they're kind of like, duh, I do that every day. Okay, I understand. And then a high school teacher's like, well, why would I do that? They need to know the content, right? There's just different philosophies. And that's real, it's okay. It's not right, it's not wrong. I think we need to embrace and know what our biases are. So the guiding questions that I brought, as I was sitting thinking and working on this presentation were these. So in today's day, and given what we know about technology evolution and given what we know about, not to say direct, the way things are moving, so do we think things are more, what's more important, what students know or what they can do? Right? I'm going to say what they can do. I'm going to say that knowledge is less and less valuable every day. Right? And if you're teaching content for knowledge and recall, if you're giving tests based on knowledge and recall, I question how much value that's providing the student in the long term. So where should we advocate in the proficiency versus growth discussion? I'm not getting political. I know this is a funny meme. I've got it. There's somebody asked somebody about proficiency versus growth, and they didn't quite know the answer. But it's a great discussion, right? Proficiency, in my opinion, proficiency it's arbitrary, right? I can pick any metric as being, that's what means proficiency. And then I'm going to look at my class of 20 kids or 30 kids or my classes of 100 kids, and I'm going to go, she's already got it. She's never going to get it. I need to work on him. Right? That's what proficiency does. It reinforces that idea. It's unfortunate, but there's just a reality that if I'm looking at this benchmark as proficiency, instead of looking at she needs to grow, and she needs to grow, and he needs to grow. And that looks different for all of them. It's just a totally different way of looking at things. I'm sorry. Does every student need the same thing from you? No, and that's okay. They don't all need to take the same test. They don't all need to do the same project, right? That's proficiency. That picture of me when I was really cool, I needed different things then than I need now. And I had teachers who didn't work for me but worked for others, right? I needed different things for those teachers than the other students in the class did. So why are we measuring all students the same way to determine success? That's sort of the big, I know, and I understand. This is paradoxical. Yeah, we all know this. We're a room of educators, we get it. But at the end of the year, we take a standardized test, and then I'm told I'm a good or bad teacher because of it. Right, so that's where I think you advocating at your school level, at your division level, that has to happen. So I'm real proud of Charlottesville City Schools. We spent the last year going through a strategic planning process. If you've never participated and they ask you to, run. No, it was wonderful. It was really wonderful, but it is an unbelievable amount of work, and I'm so happy for all the feedback we got and all the participation we got. So we settled here as we wrote a new mission, and we said this is it. So from the top down as a division, we're saying every learner, every day, everyone. Real simple. And that means our cafeteria line workers, our bus drivers, our school security resource officers, our teachers, all share equal responsibility in getting those students to the measures and the outcomes that we want them to hit. And that is a shift. So how are we going to do it? That's a great question. Not there yet. But we're here, and we're starting the new year with this front and center, and developing PD around that and trying to change the way people think. So how do we do it? That's the real big question. And I think Canvas provides so many different tools that I want to make sure that you're thinking about them, thinking about how they can be used. And one thing I know about everybody in this room is you're going to think of ways to use them that I won't have either put up here or have thought about myself. I think before you start using tools in Canvas, so you have to start with the measures, right? Like, I can't emphasize enough how often teachers are working really, really, really hard across the country, and they're not exactly sure what the end goal is, but they're working their rear ends off. And I think outcomes need to be shared, just like the idea of every learner every day. I think the outcomes are shared through your school as well. So what I would say is you form a committee, school level, division level, to make sure that the outcomes that you are putting in Canvas, that you are measuring against in your assessments and your rubrics, actually communicate the values that your school and the targets that your school and or school division has. That's not work for one person. That's work for a lot of people and a lot of work. And I know, so you have standards from your state, right? But I think most people don't view those as being the be-all, end-all of what they're going to teach their students. So to me, outcomes is higher than that. Outcomes is, really goal-oriented. We're not just saying, oh yeah, we're going to, get to proficiency or competency on the standardized test. We want more than that. And that looks a little bit different. One of my favorite SOLs in Virginia. So we have standards of learning. It's kind of funny, actually, SOL. I know a lot of you went, SOL? Really? That's the acronym they picked? It was a fourth grade history SOL when I was an elementary school teacher. That was Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death. That was it. Student must know that. Like, really? Not why, not when, not what was going on, what the time period was like, just that he said that. And actually what's funny about that now is that there's some question as to whether or not he ever said that or if that was propaganda. That's even funnier. But that was the standard, that they needed to know that. To me, that you're doing, if that's the level we're getting kids to, we're doing a disservice. I could just ask Google who said give me liberty or give me death, and Google will tell me. So outcomes. One of the really cool things for outcomes is your calculation methods. When you set a new outcome, there's 4 different ways to calculate that outcome. And I know for us, we have teachers who are passionate about all of these. No. It should just be the last time they took something and were graded, because that's their proficiency now, okay? No. It should be decaying average, which is like, the last time's the most important, but I don't want to ignore the fact that they actually aced that quiz 3 months ago. So make sure you understand these. Decaying average, 65% of the weight of proficiency on that outcome is on the last assessment, assignment, grade that was awarded for it. The other, let's say you've done it 10 times, the other 9 would be 35%, would be averaged out for that. So decaying average is kind of a neat tool. N number of times, it basically says, in order to achieve mastery, they must demonstrate this 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 5's the limit in Canvas. Most recent score, whatever they did before doesn't matter. Like I said, I have my math teachers, this is their like, most recent, that's all that matters to the math teachers. And then highest score. So doesn't matter when, doesn't matter whatever. If they scored to 90%, then we know that they're proficient in that, because that's what our benchmark was. So you build the outcomes, you do them as a team, school, even if it's your department, like if you're a secondary or high school teacher, your department does the outcomes. Your school does the outcome, and hopefully your school division. One of the things that's really cool with outcomes, they can be pushed in Canvas. So they can be developed, at the division level and pushed out. And then all you have to do as a teacher is say, these are the 3 outcomes that matter, and I'm going to align them to my rubric, and then I'm going to use that to measure mastery. It's an amazing, like when you tie it all together, it's unbelievable. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about how to write a rubric. I'm going to assume you guys either know that or, well, you know that. But the Canvas rubric tool and the fact that you can align it with your outcomes is amazing. And so within the rubric, there's a little link that just says find outcome. And you can then pick the outcome from the outcomes that were populated in your instance, and then that rubric and the mastery or the grade or the score, or however you want to say it, that student receives is then interpreted as a proficiency level, or I should say a mastery level on that particular outcome. What's really cool about rubrics and what's really cool about this is if you already have, like, let's say you already developed a whole bunch of rubrics but you didn't have outcomes, you can actually go back and add them later. So don't feel like, oh, I've already done all this and now I have to redo it all. You don't. You actually can just expand, which is cool. Okay, so yep. And then you're going to say, use this for scoring, which is going to make it part of the mastery as well. And what's really cool is the little icon. I actually love this. So you know that you have what you're putting down as criterion, like, is the worksheet complete? But then additionally, you actually have the outcome there. And it's got the little target icon next to it, so you know in this rubric there's actually an outcome that's linked to your outcomes, it's tied to mastery. And I think that's pretty awesome. Second thing you can do is those same outcomes can now be aligned to question banks. And actually, you've been able to do this for a while. Question banks in Canvas allow you to take a particular topic, write 5, 6, 7 questions that maybe actually test the same thing, and then you can actually generate quizzes from that. And you're also able to align outcomes to that. So performance on that question, those questions, provides you with that same mastery tracking in the Mastery Gradebook for your quiz questions. Now, I want to just caution, you cannot align the outcome to quiz questions individually yet. We've all heard about the new quiz engine. There's a lot of talk about what it will and won't do, so we're all very excited. But the idea of question banking or test banking is a pretty standard practice, it's a pretty good practice, and so the fact that you can align the outcomes there really accomplishes the same thing, but you can't write a 5-question quiz and then align each question to its own outcome yet. We're all optimistic about that, though. All right, so Mastery Gradebook. How many of you have access to the Mastery Gradebook right now in Canvas? Show of hands. How many of you don't know? All right, I think that's probably the more important question, to be honest with you. Mastery Gradebook has to be turned on at the account level. So whoever your Canvas administrator is, the person who throws all the switches and makes you angry by turning on features and messing your stuff up, that's what I do. That's the person you need to talk to if you're not seeing it. So in Canvas there are feature flags, and some of them have basically off, allow, or on. And the Mastery Gradebook is one of those. So it's possible it's on allow in your domain, and you didn't realize it, but you need to go into your course settings and turn it on there. So that there's a 2-step. If it's on allow, then you as a teacher need to go into your course settings and turn on the Mastery Gradebook for your courses as well. Mastery Gradebook, real quick, if you don't know it, I don't want to belabor it. Again, literally, you could do hours on this alone. But across the top, you have the outcomes, right? So you've written your outcomes. In this case, the graphic, they chose numbers. I don't know if that's unless you really know what 1.3 is, which some of you I'm sure do. It's like, I know 1.3, it's da-da-da. But I think some context there, thinking about your syntax across the top, you don't get a huge amount of space, but I think it'd be smart to make some nod to what that particular outcome or standard is, so that you know what you're looking at from this view as well. This is the default view. There's also an individual student view, which is super cool. So then you're seeing reds, yellows, greens, how many things they have proficiency on, how many things they don't. So that brings us to one of the problems that we had to solve. We have two situations, I think, that are fairly common. One is courses called honors optional at our high school. Does anybody offer honors optional, unleveled? Anybody have no idea what I'm talking about? Okay, am I still here? Honors optional means you have a heterogeneously grouped class, and the assignments and the work are leveled. So we are working towards that being the standard, the norm in our schools, because between academic level, honors level, AP level, dual enrollment, it's insane, right? You have the same class being taught 4 or 5 different ways to 4 or 5 different groups of students. And unfortunately, it begins to feel a lot like people get locked into a certain place and there's no way out. So with honors optional, a student of 24 kids, let's say US history, they will get a rubric assignment, and they can do honors level work or academic level work, and that's their choice. And then throughout the year, they accumulate a certain amount of honors credit, and if they reach the benchmark, then they get the A for an honors level course at the end of the year on their transcript. And if they do the academic work, then they get the A for academic work. And whether the kid's an underachiever and just doesn't want to do the honors work, but still wants that same high level of instruction, then is a good option. And then for the kids that maybe wouldn't have had a chance in honors, all of a sudden you find these kids that just blow your mind. Like, why weren't you, where have you been? And it's a really amazing experience when you have those kind of awakenings. The other one is standards-based. Standards-based grading is hard. It's hard for the teacher, it's hard for the student, and it's really hard for the parents. Like if you're doing standards-based grading, they call, why does my kid have a C? Well, because it's through the whole year. They're doing good work. They're just not there yet. And so you get the whole like, we still have to assign a letter grade, but it doesn't really fit with standards-based and or mastery-based grading. So our math department as a whole, I would say, with very few exceptions, almost every course in our math department is using standards-based grading, which is great. And using tools like Canvas have really helped to make that possible, which is awesome. So MasteryPass, I want to talk about them in two ways. Anybody using MasteryPass? Awesome. It's a fairly new feature. I think 6 months old or so. It really rolled out and was fully ready. Again, person who's your administrator needs to turn it on, like allow or on, whatever works. The mastery path, basically, the traditional way to use it would be to take a pretest, and depending upon the results of the pretest, the student gets a assignment of work that is, these 2 or 3 assignments. And so if it's like 0 to 10%, the student gets these 3 assignments. If it's 11% to 60%, the student gets these 3 assignments, and the student's 61% to 90 or whatever your decision as a teacher would be. Then they get different assignments. And Canvas does this for you. So you build it. You build the logic by putting the assignments in and identifying on the pretest how much you're looking for. And what you're hoping to do is prevent that kid from sitting in a unit for a week that maybe they already know the content from, right? And you're also preventing that kid who doesn't have the background information that you have from struggling through that unit instead of giving the opportunity for an intervention right there and then to help that student get the foundational information they need to understand the new topic. I think I'd be remiss not to sort of caution, though. Some of the examples I see on MasteryPass sort of bug me, and I'll tell you why. It feels often like a pyramid where lowest level kid gets 6 assignments, the kid scoring in the middle gets 2 assignments, and the kid who scores at the top gets 1 assignment. And I'm just kind of like, so you're punishing the kids who already don't know what they need to know, like aren't where you want them to be? So I just want to be in some of the examples that are out there that are on YouTube, that are even on the Canvas page, you see some of this sort of, we're going to really help this kid by giving them extra assignment and extra work. That's not received well. It just isn't. The student doesn't want that. So you got to think about really maybe methods and what the assignment's asking the student to do or show or learn, rather than, wow, this kid's really behind. We just got to get a whole lot more information to him really fast. That's not going to work. So the pretest, the kids take the pretest. It releases the content based upon how they perform. They only will see the content that gets released to them. They won't see the content that's not in their mastery path, which is really, it's an amazing experience. If you don't see mastery paths in your course, send an email, pick up the phone, talk to your person who pulls those levers for your division. So then, and I have to give a nod, Kona Jones, I know she's here, I don't know if she's in the room. If you don't know who she is, she's a Canvassador. She's amazing on Twitter. She's like just a guru. And I wanted to give her a nod because she came up with this way to hack MasteryPass, which I thought was genius. And whether she came up with it or just shared it, she wrote a wonderful post. You can find it. I linked it here. I'm not trying to take credit for what she shared. So what if the pretest was not a pretest? And this is where we get into our on-level classes. What if instead the pretest was rather a declaration? Right? So it's a 1-question quiz. Are you going to do honors level work or academic level work for this unit? And then it releases the mastery path that has those assignments and everything in it for the student. You also, one of the examples that I thought was great in this one, let's say you assigned students a choice of 4 different books to read. Which book did you read? The kid answers it, and based upon their answer, you set up the mastery path to provide that content or those assignments that are relevant to that book. So it's just a beautiful way to hack mastery paths that allow you to basically provide individualized, personalized curriculum to different students based upon the question, their answer to a 1-question quiz. Pretty cool. All right, so peer review. John Hattie, we all know who John Hattie is, I hope. John Hattie, yes, no, hands up. I know him, I never heard of him. You're talking gibberish. I stopped listening 10 minutes ago, whatever it is. Feedback has the single largest effect size of any influencer. That's it. Now, Hattie's generally talking about teacher feedback, but I think peer feedback and things like peer review, they have to be up there too. And I don't know that he differentiated between teacher feedback and student feedback, but the idea that this will provide more learning and growth than any other thing, why are we not doing that? And Canvas provides you with a tool for peer review. So you can actually take an assignment and say, this is peer review, these 4 students should review these assignments, and then the students make comments and give some feedback to their peers. The students are learning through that process too. It's amazing. And so I'm a big advocate for, I'd highly recommend it. And peer tutoring, which you could set up, right? You could set up peer feedback to become peer tutoring, is one of the top 10 influencers for effect size according to Hattie. So for you as a teacher, I'm gonna burst some of your bubbles. I apologize for that. You're really unfair when you grade. Do you know that? There was a wonderful couple of research studies done, and I took a quote here from Daniel Kahneman, who, if you don't know who he is, in this book, it's amazing. It's pretty fast read, pretty statistical, like a lot of statistics. So for some people, it'll be like, no thanks. He was a college professor, and what he realized is how the student did on the first question he scored absolutely influenced the rest of the grading for that particular student. And he's like, I tried different ways to change that, and he realized you can't. So his solution to that was, in this case, he was talking about essay questions. He had the kids answer a different essay question in a different book, and then had them write their names on the back, and he never looked at the name until he was done grading. And so a good solution. So that way, if there was 4 essay questions, the kids had to bring 4 blue books to the test day and write question 1 and write question 2, and then he mixed them all up, and then he went through and scored them. And he found that was the only way for him to stop being biased in his grading. And I think that there's a reality there. So if you really want to be fair to your students, if you really want to measure against outcomes, if you really want to say, where is Susie, where is Johnny? We're all human. We all have favorites. It's okay, right? We try not to let that show. We all have kids that, for whatever one reason or another, we connect with. And trust me, one of 2 things happens. You either grade them a little bit like, I know what she meant. She was on the right. I know what she meant. Or you're the opposite, like, Susie's got great potential. She's not showing it. I'm going to really, and neither one of those is fair, right? Neither one of those is fair, but we're all human. So, I would just say, take a look at anonymous grading in Canvas. Right? You turn it on in SpeedGrader, there's a little option. I showed the little window down there. Go up in SpeedGrader, go to settings, check anonymous grading, and you won't see student names anymore. Really quick, because I think I only have like 5 minutes left. There it is. Individualized assignments. So you can assign an assignment to just 1 student. Did you know that? Or 2 students, or 3 students. There's nothing stopping, and the gradebook handles that. If they're graded assignments, the gradebook handles that. It's amazing. With the big green grade books back in the day, right? How the heck am I going to do that? Like, I have a column for just this 1 kid for 1 assignment? That doesn't make sense. Canvas handles it. Exempting students. Sometimes it's not the right thing for the student. Sometimes that assignment is the right thing. In SpeedGrader or in your gradebook, EX. You just write EX, hit enter, and Canvas doesn't count that score for that student. Super fast. Extra quiz attempts. I love this one. Right? And I know it's different for different people, but if a kid needs to take the quiz 5 times, and they're going to go back and study a little bit between each, we're getting to mastery. That's a learning process. In Canvas, you can say, extensions, allow this many extra attempts, and let them try again. And student choice. And this one is really complex, and I couldn't possibly do it justice. But your creativity is going to be huge here, because in the modules, you can make rules. You can do completion rules, right? So what are the requirements to complete? And you can do prerequisites. And that creates so much power. And a lot of people, I found teachers in our division who didn't know about this. I'm like, oh, you just did a little gear up on the right-hand side of your module, and like, holy man, like, right? And then you can say, require this one thing. And maybe that one thing is just a minimum of 80% on the final quiz. That's the requirement. All the other stuff is building up to that. But maybe it's require this, at least this, and this, and this. And so you get into some and/or situations that get really, really cool. And then you can say, well, they can't even start this one until they've done something previous with the prerequisite rules. So you'll see on the graphic that I included here, like the requirement for that first arrow is just to view it. If the kid opens it, then they get credit for that. The second one, they have to mark that they've done that. Like if that's marked done, then they're good. Third one, there's a submission. Fourth one, they have to score at least an 8. So you can see in this one module, there's a whole bunch of different requirements until that module is going to be called done. Again, maybe different modules for the same topic for different kids. Now, again, I'm not saying one module per kid. You guys would all probably not be teaching anymore. But you can be creative. Maybe one module for one book, one module for another book. And then, this was an amazing feature release, in my opinion. Before you did an assignment, what kind of submission was it? It's this. They're going to turn this in. And now it's or. That is amazing. So now it's provide evidence that you understand whatever the topic is, and then you say, and they can do this via a URL, via a text entry, via a recording, via an upload. And I would be remiss not to mention LTI, because I think when it comes to personalization, your school districts are all different than my school district, and everybody in this room comes from a different situation, a different environment. And one of the ways to meet the needs of your learners and your teachers and your parents is to look to those apps, hundreds and hundreds of them, that you may already be using that extend Canvas well beyond the walls of what Canvas has built. It's unlimited, it's amazing, and I think that LTI, again, I'm going to advocate for, let your teachers enable LTI apps. If you're an admin in the room, don't make that a firewall for your teachers. Just my opinion. So, that's it.